I'm really worried about the future of this country.
Democrats need to work on reaching out, okay? We can no longer just assign everyone who voted for Trump as the party of bad people or basket of deplorables. It's just not working.
Flip the fucking house! Flip the fucking house! We're flipping the motherfucking house! Yo, what's up guys? We're live here in Phoenix, Arizona at the Van Buren for the We Won't Back Down tour hosted by MoveOn. It's hot as fuck, but could it be due to this fiery crowd that's gathered here today to flip the fucking house in AZ? MoveOn launched its nationwide We Won't Back Down tour in downtown Phoenix on Sunday, August 3rd, drawing an energized crowd. The event featured powerful speeches from leaders like Representative Jasmine Crockett from Texas' 30th Congressional District, Representative Yasmin Ansari from Arizona's 3rd Congressional District, and Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, all delivering a night of bold progressive messages aimed at mobilizing key voters in battleground states ahead of the 2026 midterms.
I need you to understand that we are one. Ansari talked about talking to your Republican friends and neighbors, but I'm here to tell you that you need to talk to some of your Democratic friends and neighbors.
They are fueled by immense amounts of money and disinformation. They are also, their mission is carried forward by cowardly Republicans who will literally do whatever it is that Donald Trump wants. So, Arizona Republicans, they are all in on that. All in.
And if you want to ask me what the Democratic Party should stand for, it should stand for two things: unrigging our government and unrigging our economy. If you work full-time in this country, if you play by the rules, you should be able to make a living wage, a dignified wage in this nation.
We're here to support Jasmine Crockett and Senator Murphy, Yasmin, our local hometown hero, Congresswoman, and really shine a light on what's going on in the Trump organization and get our voices heard.
We're just out to learn more about the Democratic candidates here, hear about what they have to say about this super important topic, you know, flipping the House, and obviously the Senate too, if we can, for 2026, to maybe put up more resistance to some of the policies that Trump and the other Republicans are trying to pass through.
I would say one of the biggest issues that we have in the United States is listening to younger voters. I think something that we consistently hear is an outcry from the younger voices within my generation, Gen Z. We're consistently begging for a seat at the table. And we're not getting it, which I think is what's costing us some of these very critical elections. We're not seeing the youth turn out in the same way that we're seeing with the Republican Party, who's turning to outside organizations like Turning Point, and Turning Point is able to engage all of these college students on these campuses consistently, while the Democratic Party isn't necessarily giving the same resources to their youth wing, and they're only focusing on the youth during key election cycles instead of doing year-round programming for those youth in the same way that Turning Point USA does.
Okay, well, my goal in running for the Arizona Democratic State Party chair is to bring our party back together. It's had some problems lately, to get everybody focused and working on electing Democrats to every single state, from the senator, well, we don't have senator elections this year, but down to every city council and school board. We need progressive people that are going to help this country go forward.
You're running for 2026?
Yes, sir, I am.
And what are you running for?
Congress in Arizona's 8th Congressional District against Abe Hamadeh.
Okay. And you're also running as well in 2026, correct?
I am. I am running to be the next state superintendent of public instruction in Arizona to replace Tom Horn.
What do you think is one of the main issues here in Arizona in general?
For the federal level, it is the economy. Stupid. It really is. It's the economy, it's jobs, and security. I think locally, I'm going to hand it off to Terry because it's education.
And I'm so glad that Bernadette mentioned the economy, because education is economic development. And if we are not taking care of our public students, there's 1 million students in public education across Arizona. If we are not funding our students at the level that they should be, then we are not attracting the best and brightest educators, and they're not staying in our classrooms, and we need them. So education is economic development. Let's invest in Arizona.
I live on Social Security, and I worry every day that
it's going to be cut or eliminated altogether, and our Medicare, which is my main source of health care, is going to be cut or eliminated. I'm fairly healthy, but I have some conditions, and I rely on Medicare to pay for my prescriptions and my access to my doctors. And, you know, that's a direct concern as to, you know, how long I'm gonna live if I don't have access to medication.
I think a lot of the attacks on like healthcare, the education system, immigrants especially as well, pretty much every minority group in America right now is facing a lot of pressure and just a lot of bad things from the Trump administration. And so to see which ways Democrats are trying to combat that, I think is interesting.
I want to bring a lot of attention to what Abe is not doing for the district. And his silence is complicit in what Trump is doing. We have a high number of veterans. He's not protecting veterans. I mean, we have a huge number of retired persons and people on Medicare. He's allowed this big budget to go through, which is going to literally end Meals on Wheels, take people off of Medicaid. We've got families that rely on SNAP, like 1 million Arizonans that are not going to get food. His silence is his complicity, and that has to end.
And I've said for years, I've been active in politics since I was a teenager, and I've said for years that I'm doing it for the young people. I'm doing it for my children and my grandchildren and my, you know, great-grandchildren someday, because that's what's important, you know.
Well, education should be our country's #1 priority. When we have a president of the United States talking about dismantling the Department of Education, and we have legislators in Arizona who support the defunding of education, it's a problem. And when I talk to voters across Arizona, hands down, they value education regardless of their political affiliation. And let's come back to that. Let's invest in Arizona. Let's protect our children and their future for Arizona's future.
What do you think the most strongest strategy that a Democrat politician can do to try to get those Republican voters back and those people that felt like they were let down by the Democratic Party?
Well, I think they have to listen to their constituents, listen to what the people have to say, and listen and adapt to what is and isn't working. I think you see a lot of politicians, a lot of the parties trying to push the same thing over and over again, and I think you have to adapt and you have to be able to listen if the Democrats are going to be elected to these positions.
A lot of times to reach out to Republican voters, you have to meet them where they are. You know, I think at the end of the day, as like as a working class young person, I think that, you know, I can relate to like some of the things that a lot of Republicans are talking about. You know, you have the far right Republicans that are, you know, that it's almost impossible to reach them, but then you have the Republicans that were just worried about the price of eggs. And, you know, as a young person who, you know, is paying my own way through school, who's, you know, paying all of my own bills with no support from my parents, that's something that I can relate to. The cost of eggs is genuinely something that affects me on a day-to-day basis. And I think, you know, having conversations with Republicans about those day-to-day issues without, like, separate from the party is one of the best things that you can do to really make sure that you're able to do that outreach and talk to them.
I have one more question. How would you reach Republican voters?
Because I'm like them. I was a long-haul truck driver for 27 years across 3.5 million miles. I have built a business. I had a business fail under Bidenomics. I know what it's like. So if you want someone that actually understands and lives the exact same life, has the same issues, then you gotta vote for somebody that's lived that life and had that lived experience. I think if they hear that I have, yeah, they'll vote.
Young people can get involved with local campaigns, whether it be your state representatives, whether it be your congressional representatives. For example, I'm 21 years old and I'm managing a congressional campaign. When you get involved with, you know, local organizations, when you get involved with local candidates, when you get involved with national candidates, you have the ability to really make a change. And that's one thing that young people really need to focus on.
Any last things you want to say?
Remember to fuck around and flip the house.
Hell yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.